Welcome everybody. Excited to be doing this webinar again. This is our 2025 Tech Trends Driving Beverage Innovation. Also really excited because we have our co-founder and CEO, Brett Danielson with us, who is also a good friend of mine over the years. And a lot of what we're talking about today is stuff that Brett and I talk about on a regular basis. So I think this is going to be a pretty fluid conversation. If you have any questions, please just put them in the Q&A. We try to hit about 4 to 5 questions at the end of each one of these, depending on time frames. If we can't get to your question, we will send a follow-up to you. So we'll email you back and make sure that we get that answered for you. So jumping into this, I'm excited to welcome Brett Danielson, our co-founder, our CEO here at Bar Track. Quick little insert on Brett, and he founded the company while he was a student over at James Madison University, and he spent his career at the intersection of hospitality and technology, building tools that give operators real-time visibility and control over draft performance. So, Brett, thank you for joining us. Let's go ahead and jump in here. Maybe give us a little bit of your background, Brett, in case I missed anything specific there.
Yeah, so happy to be in front of everybody today. Hopefully we keep this somewhat casual and informative, as Ian and I like to do. A little bit about myself. I grew up in the Northern Virginia, DC metro area. Went to college down at James Madison University. We're in the college football playoff. Everybody give us some good vibes for that, please. Hope we get a win. But before I went to college, I had two iterations of college, let's say. And in between the first and second stint, I spent my entire time working behind the bar and in restaurants. And I like to say that, I was the problem. I was not the best staff member at that point in my life. And so, obviously that improved.
Yeah.
I got to learn a lot about the industry, really fell in love with the industry, and the idea of taking something, raw ingredients, whatever it may be, and putting that in front of a customer and having them have a great experience. And the idea that, somebody saved up money for that week or that month to come to the store and have a great experience with their family, and that I got to be a part of that experience was something that I really valued. To Ian's point, I've taken some of that experience in hospitality and turned it into a tech, and solving those problems that I dealt with every day. And I'm excited to talk to you guys about kind of our view of, what's important in 2026, for the industry, in particular. So I'll shut up there. I hope everybody enjoys this, and feel free to reach out to us afterwards if you want to talk about anything. We love to be involved in the industry and give out as much free information as we can about, what our opinions are for right or wrong. So.
Yeah, no, great. And I think this is going to be a good conversation today. A lot of the stuff that we're going to be going over, we talk about on a regular basis here at Bar Track.
Yeah.
And so jumping into this, Brett, maybe share some of your insights on how tech is reshaping the draft beverage industry in 2025 going into 2026, and what opportunities does that really create for operators at this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think,
Maybe, Brett, just to make it easier, sorry to interrupt, right? Maybe list off kind of like your top, let's keep it at like a top 4 or 5, because I know we could probably go on about this for a long time. Let's
yeah.
keep it at maybe like top 4 or 5, and then I'll just make a note of what you're going through, and then we can take a little of a deep dive into each one, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that. So, as everybody knows, probably one of the most influential trends in the world right now is artificial intelligence. And in particular for our industry, it's, how it analyzes data and drags insights out of your data, whether it be on a per store basis, if it's a Brett's Bar and Grill, or a national account. And I think what AI is really doing, that we'll talk about, I'm sure later, is it's making that level of analysis available to everybody, not just somebody that wants to spend $1 million a year, right? I think another trend that we're starting to see in the beverage space is the need for smart technologies, IoT devices, to monitor different parts of your beverage dispense systems, all the way from gas to glass. And the need there is a couple fold, really to increase quality, but also you need to get some good data into those AI engines so that you can analyze things and get good analytics and insights from it.
Mhm.
I think on a more macro level, we're seeing a big movement away from establishments that have 40, 50, 60, 70 taps,
Mhm.
and a lot more establishments that are opening up new restaurants are in that 8 to 12, range. Craft beer bars used to be 40, now they're, somewhere in the 16 to 20 at most. And we can talk about that to your point, Ian, later. I think the other one that is near and dear to my heart, which I think has always been important, but as you know, there's different pricing pressures on consumers, and we're trying to find different ways to bring people into the restaurants and keep them coming back. I think there's a huge push towards quality on your food and beverage
Mhm.
plant
Mhm.
programs,
Mhm.
but also quality of service.
Yep.
I think is
Service experience. Yeah.
increasingly important.
Yep.
And then the last one that kind of bleeds into all of these things, or is the part of the catalyst for all these things, is just, the continuation of labor and overhead in the restaurants, whether it be rent, food, labor pricing, continuing to increase since COVID. And it's really forcing operators, I think, to think differently about their business and find ways, more creative ways, to optimize their operations so that they can stay afloat, and continue to provide great experiences for their patrons. So those are, I don't know how
That's
many that
good.
was,
That's
Ian.
five. Let's stop there. Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
feel like
Let's
that was
stop there.
more than five, but I think
No, no,
those
no.
are the
One,
ones
two,
that I
three,
care
four. I
about.
got five. And maybe I'm not
There we
listening.
go.
So let's take a deeper dive then here, right?
Yep.
So you mentioned AI. I think it's a hot topic across everything right now. And I think, something as a former restaurant owner and technology has always been, I think, a scary thing to the restaurant world. We grew
Yep.
up in, picking up the keg, shaking it, living out of the Excel sheets. When you
Yep.
say AI to people, people think, well, Chat GPT. And a lot of people are just using that to revise their email. How is AI being introduced? What do you think AI plays a role in the restaurant world, right?
Yep.
And how do you think someone like an operator can utilize that or provide that to the rest of their team in a way that's
Yeah.
meaningful?
I know that your favorite use of AI is helping with your emails. So hopefully everybody picks up on that because this guy loves it. But when I think of AI, there's a lot of stuff under the hood from a technical perspective that's important. But let's save that for another day. What I think the most important use of AI in our industry is making complex data and analysis simple.
Mm,
So, you used a word like, AI is scary. It was scary to go through all of our data. It was hard, those kind of words. When I think of AI in its proper use case inside our industry, it's making those tasks easier, and better, right? Instead of having to, sit at 3 or 4 in the morning after you closed out and do 2 hours worth of analysis, when you're tired, you can ask a couple questions and get the analysis that you want. You could take a very large data set and you could say something simple like, give me some insights to help improve my business.
mm,
I think there's a lot of functional things that you can do with AI inside your business that are great, that are really helpful to every part of your staff. The other thing that I think is great is that there's a ton of data available on platforms like ChatGPT and Grok and all these other things. If you're interested in learning more broadly about where the market is going or your specific market is going, it's kind of surprising how much is on there, as it relates to what beverages are popular, what prices they're selling at,
mm,
consumer trends. I mean, there's so much information out there at the tip of your fingertips, that AI, I think, makes more available. And this bleeds into something that's a real passion of mine, which is the less time that you can spend analyzing data and doing what I would call easy tasks or mundane tasks, the more time that you have to spend on the things that matter, which to me, the most important thing is the guest experience, right? And we'll talk about that a little later.
yeah.
in terms of AI tools, if you have questions or want some advice, I'd be happy to point you in the direction of some of the things that we use here at BarTrack to help analyze, not only our internal business data, but also customers' reports data, reporting data, that can be applied to your point of sale, whatever it is, or whatever systems that you're using. Because I think the more informed that we are as a hospitality community, the better our hospitality community is. It's high tides rise all ships. It doesn't have to be our product, but I think everybody should be using something. I think it's important.
Yeah,
Uh,
no, those are great points. I think some of the things I look at from AI is customization, right? If, every business likes to run a little bit differently. I think it's an easy way for you to collect data and customize it to your needs, and I think it also simplifies some processes for your managers. It makes training a little bit easier and breaking down information and so on and so forth. Um, Moving on to the next one. I'm going to keep us on time, Brett. So, smart tech, you said smart tech and IoT. So, smart tech,
yes.
I get it. Maybe could you break down what IoT is and how that's important in the restaurant world?
IoT, the easiest way to say that is hardware that connects to the internet, right? So why is that important? Well, I think one reason it's important is it connects to these AI engines that allow you to get better data. So you're not doing like manual temperature checks and manual checks on your equipment, that can be flawed for all different sorts of reasons, right? The other thing that I think is really important as it relates to IoT broadly for your beverage systems, whether it be soda, beer, whatever you're pouring on draft cocktails, uh, is that it can prevent downtime and increase quality. If you have the right systems in place, CO2 monitoring, flow monitoring, temperature monitoring, line cleanliness monitoring, those are things that are going to promote the best possible drinking experience, right? We say in the beer world, it's got to be cold, clean, and carbonated. Well, monitoring those three things, if you have a cold, clean, and carbonated beer, it's probably going to taste pretty good.
Mhm.
And as we all know, if I have a great beer at the bar and I like the way it tastes, there's a much better chance of me having a second one than if it doesn't taste good. I think the preventing equipment downtime piece is something that I can't underscore enough. As everybody knows, you run out of CO2, your glycol unit fails, your kegerator fails. And
All on a Friday night or a Saturday
it
night.
is, I was just about to say, it's always Friday night, it's always the weekend. And that's when, restaurants are doing 75% of their business. And so now you've lost that volume forever, right? It's gone, never coming back. Your product is a little bit more stale, so it doesn't taste as good anymore. And it's just not something you want to deal with. And frankly, an emergency call, if my glycol unit went down or my kegerator went down, it costs more money. So I think those are things that are really important as it relates to smart technology and IoT broadly. And why I'd recommend it to every bar. This isn't a sales pitch for Bar Track at all. This is, my opinion of why I think these things are important. You want continuity service. You want to make it easier to manage. You don't want to have everybody be an expert on a draft system to know if it's performing well or not. And at the end of the day, if you have better quality, you're going to sell more product. And as I've said a couple times, that's why I got into the industry was the passion around making people happy when they have a great dinner or a great beverage or a great cocktail that I made. Like that's what made me and makes me happy and why I do this every day. So I can't recommend it enough, frankly. And it does pair with probably the biggest trend in our industry around AI, right? I have good data and I'm collecting it more frequently. Now I get better insights. So,
Mhm.
uh,
Um, Moving on here. This is one that's always been, this is something we talk about a lot, and I think it's an interesting trend that we're seeing is reduced taps, right? The I've got 50 taps on at my location. We're starting to see that downsize a lot more. Maybe you could explain or talk about why you think that's happening and the benefit of maybe being in that 8 to 12 range.
yeah, I mean, it's a tough thing because I think that this trend is a combination of a lot of different things. I don't think it's one thing more than the other. I think it's death by a thousand cuts, if you will, and I think it comes from taste preferences with consumers constantly changing, as everybody knows. I think people are looking for healthier drinks or drinking more healthy. beverages. I think there's a ton of pricing pressure that's been put on consumers over the last 3 to 5 years that also affects their ability and want to purchase a $8, $9, $10 pint as opposed to a three, four, $5 pint. In our data that we're looking at, we're seeing a huge movement towards lighter beers. On the craft side, you're looking at Czech, lagers, those kind of, craft lagers, craft pilsners. We're seeing domestics and imports go up dramatically over the last 9 months. And I think that plays into all of those things, right? Consumers are trying to be a little healthier. And I think they are trying to spend a little bit less at the restaurant. Um, and I will say, cocktails on draft is something that, we had pinpointed as a huge trend for last year. And I think that data has bear fruit. It was a huge trend during 2025, and I think it's going to continue to be a huge trend in 2026. And I say that because, you and I have powwowed many times, sitting at the Pine and saying, it takes a minute to make a mojito if I'm doing it by hand, or 30 seconds if I'm really moving. I can just go and grab a faucet and put some garnish on it, and it takes me 10 seconds. And, the argument could be made that I'm getting a better taste and a more consistent taste, from it being done in a keg and on draft than I am by doing it by hand. Um, so I think all those things are important. Now, why do we think, it's 8 to 12 taps, maybe 16 if you're a craft beer bar? I think it's just maximizing kind of your assets, right? You don't want to have 40 taps where 10 of them don't move. I think there's a market for that. Don't get me wrong. I still drink at places like that all the time.
Mhm.
But I think the vast majority of people are looking for something that they know, something they've had before, something that meets their price preferences, and something that's not going to make them feel bloated. The other thing that I think is important about these lighter beers that's making them move faster is just the fact that I think you can drink more than one a little easier. Ian and I are huge sour fans. And you have one bottle of that between Ian and I, I'm done with beer for the day, and my acid reflux is going crazy
It's
at
going
the same
up through
time.
the
Yeah.
roof.
But I think those are real trends that we're going to continue to see as it goes into 2026. Imports, domestics, lighter beers, things that move higher volume. I think you'll see these hyper craft, I'll say, beverages that would have normally been sitting on that 40, 50th, 60th tap. They're going to probably go into a grab and go fridge.
Mhm.
It'll maintain its quality a lot longer. That's the other thing from my perspective that always was a bummer is, that beer that you've been looking for forever, you go into that 50 tap place and it's been sitting on the draft line for 60 or 90 days. It doesn't taste right. And that
Yeah.
has nothing to do with the bar or restaurant. It's just the nature of beer, right?
Well, let's
So,
talk on that, right? Because I'm looking here at your next one and it's
yeah,
quality. And I know I added service and experience to that.
yeah,
And I think service and experience can kind of speak for themselves in a lot of areas. When we talk about quality, from our experience in this business, we see a hyper focus on that a lot of times at breweries. They really
yeah,
want their draft lines set up correctly. They maintain them themselves. They're cleaning
yes,
them. They want that beer to taste exactly how the brewer intended it when it's coming out of their tap handles. As we move into the restaurant world, stadiums, arenas, everything like that, that level starts to drop down. And so, we can touch on service and experience, but maybe kind of hit on that. What's the importance of quality? You were talking about people are going out and they're spending $18 on a cocktail or $9 or $10 on a beer. Quality's become more of that focal point of I want this to taste good. I want it to be good. I might want to know a little backstory about where you're getting this from, so on and so forth. So maybe
yeah.
maybe talk on that real quick.
I think it all comes down to experience in the restaurant, right? When we talk about service, which you and I are heavily biased towards, I go to restaurants and I go back because they know my name, they shake my hand, they know my wife, what she wants to drink. Like those are little things that just go so far. I mean, if I owned a restaurant, my number one advice to somebody outside of beverage would be shake the person's hand at the table or get their name and call them by their name. That little thing makes such a
Directly.
big difference in the perceived service quality or experience that you're getting. As it relates to quality, or the experience, or I should say, as it relates to the experience, specifically quality. I think consumers, because there's DoorDash and these gold bellies and all the restaurants or recipes on Instagram that you can make food at your house. You can be the home Gordon Ramsay, right, and make all sorts of crazy stuff at your house. I think consumers are choosing to go out when they feel like there's more value in going to the restaurant. Like the restaurant makes a better dish, the
Mhm.
cocktail is better.
Mhm.
Ian behind the pine knows my name, and I have a conversation with him while I'm eating my food or drink. I think those are the reasons that people are going out. And frankly, I won't tell you who told me this, but a very large restaurant group with hundreds of locations. They did an analysis, and over 65% of their revenue is coming from people that eat at their restaurant more than twice a month.
Mhm.
So, as you look at that as a restaurateur or as an operator, you really want to focus on those types of customers. And the way that you grab those types of customers is by having great quality food and beverage and having great quality of service.
Mhm.
Those will promote people from being a one time, or once a month or once a year person to a multiple times a month person, like it has for me. And I can't underscore that enough. There's all sorts of metrics out there. If you don't believe me, feel free to use Ian's best friend, ChatGPT, and it'll tell you the same thing. That quality of food and drink and quality of service are the number one and number two reasons people are going into bars. And I think it allows you to get that sustainable kind of, clientele that you're looking for. People that enjoy coming to your space that are gonna tell their buddy, hey, I go to this local watering hole all the time and I love it, and you should come with me one time. And
Yep.
now they become a patron of that
Yep.
establishment. So I think that's key to me. It's near and dear to my heart. It's the reason that we started Bar Track was my co-founder and I were at a brewery. We had the same beer out of the same keg from the same bartender. One had foam on it, the other one didn't, and we had totally different drinking experiences. And that was one of our aha moments was how do we make every pint taste the same way?
Mhm.
Because when it tastes the way that the brewer intended it to taste, to your earlier point around breweries caring about their brand so much, you're going to enjoy your experience. You're going to have another one.
Yep.
And growing up in the bar and restaurant industry, I love the camaraderie that comes with sitting at the bar, meeting new people, talking to the bartender, and I hope we never lose that as a society because I think it's really important.
Got those robots coming out now, so we'll see how that goes. All right, I got to reel us in because we got 7 minutes here, and I've got a couple more things I want to go over with you.
Sounds
Labor
good.
overhead. Let's just hit real quick on that. We live right outside DC. Obviously, there
Yeah.
the cost of having an employee now has gone through the roof. We're seeing cost of food. Chicken wings went up during COVID, never came back down. Maybe just touch on that real quick. And then there's a couple other things, some notes I've been taking and some stuff that we've been talking about over the last couple of weeks that I want to touch on before we close out here. And I want to make sure we have time for
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, and I'll be brief with it, is, there's an equation in the restaurant that, relates to profitability, and one of the most important inputs is labor. Then one of the next most important ones is overhead, and one of the next most important ones is food costs. And the operators on this call are probably laughing because they're saying, "Well, that's everything." And I would say you're right. And to your point, Ian, all of those things have gone up dramatically, not by 5% or 10%. In some cases, it's 100 or 200%, like chicken wings. And in DC metro area, labor's up over 100%. And what that does is it puts pressure on the restaurateur, the operator, because your volume's not going up 100%. So there's only a handful of things you can do. You can either reduce labor or you can increase cost or a combination of the two. And I think we're seeing the combination of the two going on in our area. And, our data validates that in other major metropolitan areas that we work in. You're seeing, less bartenders on at one time. You're seeing less waiters and waitresses on at one time. You're seeing food pricing go from, the dollar wing deal to now you're getting six wings for $18.
Yep.
Those are things that are happening. And there's not much you can do about it because those are just forces that work either for or against restaurants.
Yep.
But the best thing that you can do as an operator is invest in technology, whether that be improving your point of sale to get better data, to make more automated, decisions, if you will, or guest experiences, I think is key. And trying to take away as much time from your team on doing the things that don't relate to the guest experience. So if you can eliminate inventory management, if you can eliminate recipe management, if you can eliminate reordering, if you can eliminate your temperature checks and all these checklist items that you have to do, that means that the staff that you have has more time to focus on the
Yeah.
customer,
Yeah.
which is the most important thing. So.
So little, just as we pull off of this, the one thing that I think some people might be wondering is if you had to pick out of your five, all right, which ones are set up to deliver, the biggest revenue lift for a beverage program? Would you think out of that top five? Or how would you respond to that type of question?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I think it's two things. I think focusing on quality of your food and beverage program and the service is extremely important because it produces repeat business, and repeat business will inevitably increase your revenue, right? I think that is key. I think the other thing is looking at your tap lineup. Um, Making sure that you have beverages on there that are moving is important. And you'll know if you're doing a good job or not because you'll see an increase in velocity. I think, it's obvious to say, but there's a ton of data. And feel free to reach out to Ian and his team, myself. We can give you guys some advice. We can tell you what we think is moving, what we see is moving in the areas that we're working in. But I think if I were to pick one, it would be your quality of food and beverage and your service.
Yeah.
That bullet, I think, is by far the most important for increasing revenue.
So I bring it up because we were talking the other week, or we had a meeting the other week, and we were going through. We've had thousands of customers, and we were talking about what are we noticing that the consumer expectations are around quality of product, their experience, how are they influencing, the beverage program decisions these ways. And I was taking some notes here, and some of the things that I just wanted to hit on was, value has to match the price, right? If a guest is paying $18 for a cocktail or $92, $9 to $10 for a beer, they expect the product, the service, the overall experience to feel premium. And if it
Yep.
isn't, you have that one sloppy kind of situation or that one bad experience, you may not come back. That repeat business is huge, right? I think
Yes.
another thing I put here was consistency is the new differentiator, right? Guests reward places that deliver the same great drinking experience or food experience or service experience. One bad round, one bad experience, and they're out the door.
Yep.
And then owners or operators or owners are expecting their operators to elevate that experience, and they're doing it on purpose. So more businesses are investing in better quality ingredients, products, raising the service standards, training their teams. It's I think the beverage program these days isn't just like an add-on like it used to be. I really think it's a reason people go to venues. I can speak for my girlfriend. She loves spicy margaritas. I
Yep.
love the nachos at Guapo's. I will never get nachos at Guapo's with her because she doesn't like spicy margaritas. We go to a completely different place, totally based on her drink preference. And I think that's a driving factor. You and I go out to dinner a lot and we say, hey, let's go to this place. They have a great cocktail menu. We want to check it out. That's
Yeah.
been a decision-making process for us. So the last two would be education sells the premium. So I truly believe in this, but strong programs, they're not just saying, hey, we offer better products. They're actually helping guests understand why they're better, whether it's an
Yep.
origin story or tasting notes or quality standards, or they're just making the language on the menu seem a little interesting to kind of pull you in there. That storytelling makes the higher price feel, justified, or it increases guest confidence in the ordering. And then experience includes speed and availability. I still think that even if you're providing, great service, great that you still got to have efficient service. You still got to have availability of products. What I mean by that is like premium price points. I want to get my stuff quick. I don't want to be waiting 45 minutes for my meal or a bartender to get me my drink. And nothing makes us more upset is when we go in there like, I'm sorry, I'm out of that. Oh, we're out of that too. It makes the business look like they're not managing themselves efficiently. So those are some of the key things I took from you there. I do appreciate you taking the time, Brett. I know you got a lot on your plate, so getting you in on these webinars is always a difficult process. And I know we want to try to keep this to 30 minutes. And I'm gonna there's a handful of questions that have come through, and I'm gonna try to just get through maybe three of them. And Brittany, you can cut me off whenever you need to cut me off. And whatever questions we don't get answered here, we will follow up on. But a handful of them that I think are good is one says, I have multiple locations with old draft systems at many of the locations. Should I be putting monitoring systems on them or replacing them? What would
Oof.
your take on that? So they got jacked up draft systems. Is it worth
Yeah.
the monitoring system on there, or do you just go in and redo the whole draft system?
It's a really good question. I mean, my instinct would tell me you should put monitoring on it first because you don't know what the problem could be.
Mm,
Uh, and instead of spending, if you have a 10 tap system, I mean, you could be spending easily $10,000 to get a new one easily.
mhm.
You put monitoring on it. A lot of these companies, us and others, they're going to give you no upfront, kind of subscriptions, right? So I'm deferring my costs and I'm going to identify exactly what the problem is. And then I can spend my money more wisely and replace things as I need to replace them instead of just doing a full wholesale change. That'd be my advice, frankly, because then you're using data to make the most informed decision.
Okay.
So
Um,
find somebody that's not going to charge you an arm and a leg up front, get their product, identify your problems, and then go and fix it. And then, as everybody knows, problems happen every day in the draft system. So use that data as a part of your SOP so you can prevent issues from happening. Even if you decide to get a new piece of equipment, you're still going to need to do it.
I'm gonna try to fit two more in unless Brittany cuts us off here, but
Yeah.
this is a good question here. I'm gonna go with this. How do you suggest using technology to ensure the customer is getting the best drinking experience? And what do you think is the most important thing to measure for beverage quality?
Oof, that's another great one. Um, Look, I think it depends on the beverage, right? So if you're pouring, wine or cocktails, it's gonna be a little different than beer. So I'll focus on beer for the sake of this conversation. Um, it's the three C's. You got to be cold, clean, and carbonated, right? So monitoring how you're pressurizing the system. There's a equation. It's not random that goes into draft system equilibrium that relates to pressure and temperature. So monitoring pressure and temperature, cold and carbonated, is key. And the last one is clean. You could have a great system, perfect, spend $10,000, redid your system. It's amazing, top of the line stuff. But if it's not getting cleaned, you're going to have off flavors, especially if you're rotating beer. So I think using, smart equipment to monitor those three things is the most important thing to deliver a quality beverage. And I said it a second ago, but you really want to make it an SOP, to take a peek at that data. You don't want to just let it linger because even small things can make a big difference. Like you're propping your cooler door open in the morning for the distributor for an hour, and your first guests that come in for lunch are getting foamier beer or warmer beer. I mean, that stuff matters, and it's easy to solve those things. Not just, hey, something's broken, red alert, red alarm, right? Look at your SOPs as it relates to the data you're getting to make those improvements. I think that's really important. Um,
I got one more for you. I like this one because I hear this a lot. I want to hear your thoughts on it. I'm gonna give a little bit of thoughts on it. But
Yeah.
what's your impression of food delivery companies like DoorDash and Uber Eats when it comes to maintaining the quality of the product? So if I want to deliver a good hamburger to somebody, can I rely on DoorDash to deliver that burger the way that I want that customer to experience that burger?
So I am a big DoorDash and Instacart user, as you know. Uh, you know, I'm probably paying, for people's cars out here with all the lunch that I'm ordering for the office on DoorDash. With all that said, um, I think there's a couple things in there to unpack. One is the quality of the food going to be as good as it is in the restaurant? No, it's not. No matter what you do. But there are things that you can do as an operator, from a packaging standpoint to ensure that the food gets delivered as best as it can. And I do think there are certain types of food that are just never going to travel well. Like fries, for example, is something that just never travels well. It doesn't matter what I do, what they do. It's not their
Mhm.
fault. It's just that's just the nature of the food. You got to serve that hot and ready. I know Ian's probably going to come on here and say that, he gets fried wings and tells them to put the buffalo sauce on the side so they don't get soggy as they make its way to his door. All those things are real. I think you just have to have a different expectation when you're ordering food to your house. I'm not doing it because I want to have that restaurant level experience. I'm doing it because I don't have time to cook or I'm too lazy or I don't want to clean.
Yep.
And so when you view it from that lens, order something that travels well, like and whatever you want, pizza, something like that. And you can always heat it up a little bit at your house and it's good enough,
Yeah.
right? And I try not to, if I get a bad experience from a DoorDash delivery or Uber Eats or whatever I'm using, I don't hold that against the restaurant because there's stuff that's outside of their control. And yeah, so I think it's important for driving volume and awareness. I will say that.
100%.
A
Yeah.
lot of people are going to try your food for the first time on DoorDash, and if they like it, they're going to come into your restaurant. So, by no means would I say don't do DoorDash or don't do Uber Eats. I would do it 100% of the time if I was an operator because it's found money. If someone orders off there, you're getting money you wouldn't otherwise get, and it's a way to drag loyal customers into your bar.
Yeah.
I can't tell you the amount of times that I've used DoorDash or Uber Eats, found a restaurant for the first time, and then became a patron of that restaurant. It happens all the time for me.
Yeah. I think
What are your thoughts? I mean,
one
you
of
know,
the things I add on to it is I think you need to invest in good packaging.
yeah.
I think people, at least me, I can speak for myself, but I do think this, you get judged on, if you're sending something to me in a styrofoam and you've got really bad utensils, send it in better packaging. I think it makes the food or the experience feel a little bit better. And some of the things that I've seen that I think are really interesting, a restaurant group that you and I like, Brett, which is Great American Restaurants, they always refused Uber Eats and DoorDash for the longest time. And what they were actually doing is they were bringing that in house. They built the system so that when you go online, you order online through them. You're not doing it through DoorDash, but then they control what time they deliver that to the DoorDash driver so that it's going out fresh, hot, and ready. And there's a little bit more control on that process, which I thought was an interesting way to go about it. Definitely more upfront cost, but on the back end, they're controlling the experience, the taste of the food, how it's being delivered, so on and so forth.
One thing I think too is like microwave friendly packaging.
Hmm.
So like that way, if your food is cold or needs to be microwaved, you don't put it in the microwave and the plastic
Hmm.
melts,
Hmm.
which I've done
Hmm.
before.
That is good. That's
Yeah.
a big one. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to wrap it up here. I think we went over by 7 minutes, but Brittany's letting us go. So as long as she's not throwing in the hammer on us, I think we're good. So Brett, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I know you and I get to talk about this on a regular basis, but it's always great to have your insights, your visibility on things that we can do on these webinars. It's always a lot of fun. For
Yeah.
those of you that came in late, we did record this. We will be sending this out to you, so you can always go back and start it from the beginning or anything that you might have missed. And I know there's about 5 or 6 other questions here. I just we're over time, so we will email you directly on those questions, so they will get answered. But we appreciate everyone joining today. Thank you so much for your time, and we look forward to seeing you again sometime soon.
Thank you guys.
All right, cheers.